Did congressional Republicans make a risky political move that might kill the Keystone XL pipeline? I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, speaking now through a transcontinental pipeline that runs through Stephen Green's backyard in Monument, Colorado, and under Bill Whittle's garage in Los Angeles, and straight to you, gushing with high-octane, fully refined, no ethanol intellectual fuel. Well, man, President Obama first said he'd veto a bill extending a payroll tax cut and unemployment compensation if House Republicans attached to it a measure speeding up approval of a 1,700-mile oil pipeline. The Keystone XL pipeline would carry crude from Canadian oil sands in Alberta through 6 U.S. states to refineries in Port Arthur, Texas. Most of the diesel and gasoline then would go to overseas markets to begin with. The president has put off a decision until after the 2012 election, saying more environmental and national security studies are needed. But the House Republican bill would force him to decide within 60 days whether to grant a permit for the project or not. Stephen Green, is House Speaker John Boehner betting that Obama won't kill the pipeline or that Obama will kill it and that would help the eventual Republican presidential nominee? And is this a crazy bet?
No, politically, this is as win-win as you get. Look, if Obama vetoes it, he just signed away thousands of good jobs. He vetoed cheaper energy, and he vetoed energy security. Look, if we don't build the pipeline to the south, Canada is going to build it to the west, to their west coast, where Chinese ships are going to pick the stuff up. How is that going to play politically? And you know what? If Obama does sign it, if he signs it over his own veto threat, then he disappoints his, jobs-hating, energy-hating, security-hating base voters, and I do mean base. If the GOP can't spin this into a win, they ought to just fold up their little tent and go home. Honestly, it's that easy.
Well, if they ship that crude to China, does China actually have an environment over there? I don't think they do, and so nothing can be harmed there. Bill, the State Department has been studying the Keystone XL project for 3 years. Secretary Clinton previously indicated she was leaning toward approval, since denying the permit wouldn't stop global warming or the risk of disastrous leaks, as Steve pointed out. And it just might be handy to have an additional 900,000 daily barrels of crude from our friendly Canadian neighbors if things get testier in the Arab world or with Venezuela's Hugo Chavez. But last month, the president put the brakes on. How can Obama and the Democrats win by delaying the pipeline project?
Well, Steve nailed it. The Obama strategy for re-election becomes increasingly more play to the base, narrower, narrower, narrower. They're giving up working class whites. They're giving up this. They're giving up that. They're giving up jobs. They're giving up everything. They're trying to make sure that the little sliver of support they have left from these ivory tower, rich liberal, limousine liberals who always expect to have power, by the way. These are the Al Gores with 30 times the average American's electrical bill. They will get their electricity, don't you worry. But they are playing to this idea that this is some sort of ecological disaster. The ecological disaster is sending that oil to China, where it will be burned in a filthy manner. But this is all over their heads, of course. No, this is as clear as it gets for the American people what this president's priorities are. And his priorities are not American jobs, the American economy, American energy, or American security. None of those things. None of them. It's a perfect storm of clarity.
Steve, the United States is already crisscrossed by some 55,000 miles of crude oil trunk lines to refineries, and that doesn't mention hundreds of thousands of other miles of different kinds of pipes. But why would the left mount such a vigorous battle to stop another little 1,700-mile section? I mean, after all, most of the farmers in the pathway are more than eager to sell rights of way to TransCanada that's building the pipeline. Pipeline technology is safer than ever, and a lot of labor union guys, as Bill pointed out, would love to have the work. I mean, what's not to like about it?
You just reminded me of William F. Buckley when he founded National Review. He said conservatism is standing athwart history, shouting stop. Liberalism is standing in front of progress, shouting stop. They want to stop all of this. But there's nothing not to like here. One of the things you left out, pipelines are the absolute best way to move oil. If we don't string up some pipe, that stuff is going to get loaded onto ships captained by that Valdez guy. Tell your lefty friends that. the thing is, the left is using fears of fracking. That's how you get the crude oil out of these sandy oil shales in Alberta, as a way to raise energy prices and make their dreams of all these mythical green jobs with their spandex jackets a reality. Well, frack them.
Well, actually, the fracking is happening in Pennsylvania, my home state, which is really cool with this oil shale. Up in Alberta, they have these oil sands where they have to pump this stuff at high pressure through with a lot of water to get the oil out of it. But Stephen Green hosts Hair of the Dog, the weekend blogs here on pjtv.com, and you can find him online and on Twitter at Vodka Pundit. Bill, you understand the power of the word better than most. Opponents of the pipeline project perpetually refer to oil sand as tar sand. They call the product dirty oil. Nebraska's sand hills are environmentally sensitive, and the 6 states in the proposed pipeline path are America's heartland. How can advocates of freedom, prosperity, and energy independence combat the emotional power of such language?
Like this. We need to bring this dirty tar oil through America's heartland into America immediately through these environmentally sensitive areas. We need to get it here as fast as possible. This filthy, dirty tar has got to get here ASAP, because all of these people who protest these things protest this using electricity generated by oil. Your oil is either going to come from Saudi Arabia, where we are transferring trillions of dollars of wealth to people who hate us and who cause mischief for us all around the world. And if you think they're finished, you're wrong. Canada is our best friend in the world. Wouldn't you rather have that money up in Canada, where it will come back in terms of visits to Disney World, than to have it sent out to the Gulf of Mexico? If you sit at home in the dark and pedal your little stationary bicycle to run your computer, then you can lecture me about sensitive and dirty oil and all this other stuff. But until then, you're just a miserable hypocrite who wants an unearned sense of moral superiority, and I don't believe you.
Bill Whittle will soon be starring in a music video where he'll be singing, "I love that dirty petro." But in the meantime, he's already created a voter's guide to Republicans video that's really flying through the information pipeline at youtube.com/Bill Whittle channel. It's the kind of stuff that PJTV members love every day on Bill's Afterburner right here. Well, last week, the House passed a bill that does full-year extensions of the payroll tax cut and unemployment compensation, plus the Medicare doc fix that the president wants, but pays for it in ways that Obama opposes, namely spending cuts. Then the Senate voted 89-10 to kick the can down the road 2 months. I spoke with a Republican on Capitol Hill today who told me that Democrats in the Senate want their so-called jobs bill to fail in the House so that they can paint Republicans as cronies of the rich who killed tax cuts for the middle class. He thinks that the Senate Republicans who voted for it got snookered by Harry Reid. Now, Tea Party Republicans in the House say they won't kick the can. And John Boehner's team is betting the president won't risk canceling the pipeline project. It should all lead to a conference committee and a deal before year's end. And I got to tell you, I'm more than a little nervous about letting the president pinch off the pipeline project. But Boehner's no dummy. And no one has ever lost a nickel betting that this president would decide not to decide. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at pjtv.com, I'm Scott Ott.